Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay, taking a look at tonight's exciting four-game MLB slate. And
Dun 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 dun, dun. We
there's
always
not
we
much.
always talk about, or I always talk about how we want a soundboard. We're getting one, folks.
Yeah, thumbs up if you want the soundboard. Let us know. It really enhances the. I don't know. It enhances the podcast.
I'm gonna get that air horn, baby.
But four games tonight, not too appealing of a slate.
Hmm.
But there are plenty of options to look at, more so on the offensive side. And obviously, it's pretty straightforward the more you look at it.
Yeah. Again, smaller slates are you can get a little weird. There's a lot of different ways to go when there's only when there's lesser options. You got to work a little harder to differentiate yourself. So
Yeah, definitely.
use your imagination.
And you're good at that. You like tossing out some of those YOLO plays.
Definitely.
Looking at the first game, you got White Sox and Orioles. There is some rain in the forecast a little bit earlier in the game time. Could be around first pitch, so that could be something that just gets delayed. It doesn't look like any sort of postponement will be happening, which is good because there's an over and under of 9 here. You got a lefty on the hill. It's in Camden Yards. You're really looking at this Orioles team to pick on John Dinks there, and then Tyler Wilson on the other hand. Kind of intriguing because he's super cheap on DraftKings and you could just plug him in and get all the hitters you want.
Yeah.
He is facing a White Sox team that really is in the bottom 10 in WOBA against right-handers. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad matchup for him. He won't have to do much to pay out the price tag. But, I mean, if he puts up single-digit points, it's not too great.
Yeah, I think when you look at this White Sox team, they kind of boosted the salaries a little bit. So I think obviously on the just barely looking in, some of these guys are appealing against Wilson, but when you sort of start looking at the pricing and stuff, I think you sort of lean towards maybe using the Orioles players over White Sox if you're looking at this game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Tyler Wilson, you're right-hander, I think. Between the two sites, the White Sox bats are completely depreciated as far as price tags go on FanDuel. DraftKings are priced highly due to that dynamic pricing they have. I think 1 through 6 make for an interesting play tonight. Looking at Adam Eaton, Jimmy Rollins, and Melky Cabrera as kind of your safer value options. And I think Abreu and Frazier on FanDuel are interesting GPP plays. FanDuel or on DraftKings being 4,900, I'm not really seeing the love for them for me tonight.
Right. And again, I think those are ways to sort of make things different for you because I think a lot of people are going to look at it that way. So that might be a way to pay up there. I mean, especially there's not many expensive aces going on tonight. So definitely keep them in mind, but not you want to go with the values on your first few lineups or so.
Yeah, definitely agree. And on the Orioles side, we're looking at Danks here, 356 WOBA allowed to right-handers, going back to 2014, 1.24 home runs per 9. Not good numbers for a lefty in Camden Yards, whose ground ball rate's 38%. This is very friendly for hitters. I really think 1 through 9, Baltimore is in play because I think if you're looking tonight, a guy like Jonathan Scope playing second base, and also being a little bit on the cheaper side, definitely has power against lefties. J.J. Hardy, Matt Wieters are kind of the secondary names that you can still get a piece of on a small slate like this.
Yeah, and I think stacking in the first 3 to 4 guys is also in play. I think that's an intriguing way to go. They have projected for 4.6 runs right now. So, yeah, that's an interesting one to target.
Definitely. I mean, really, this whole lineup is in play. As you mentioned, those top bats, Joey Ricard, a cheap value play leading off Machado. Hits better against right-handed pitching, but obviously Danks struggles against right-handed bats. Davis even has some power. Trumbo's a guy you want to look at, and Adam Jones as well, who's hit lefties well in the past, who's kind of stumbling out of the gates here, but which has kind of depreciated his price tag for a nice matchup tonight.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely look at some Orioles in those lineups. Next one, you have Atlanta and Red Sox here, 8.5 over under. Boston big favorites. I'm not really looking at the Atlanta side. I think you can if you really want to get different, just because Buchholz can be completely off. I guess you can look at more so lefties against him. He's been pretty tough on right-handers. But overall, I mean, he's kind of your average right-hander. And I don't see a ton of production from this Atlanta team. And I'll also be having some Buchholz shares just because he's cheap on DraftKings. But FanDuel, that price tag, no thank you.
Right. So maybe looking at some of the cheaper bats in that lineup just as maybe one guy in the lineup just to sort of make things different.
Yeah, I think the one name that kind of
Pierzynski or Kelly Johnson or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely named it. Pierzynski was the guy I was keeping an eye on just because you can kind of gravitate him to be different from. I think Wieters is going to be the more popular play on the slates. Diarra Navarro as well on the White Sox side just because they're cheaper. You're not paying up behind catcher anyway tonight, so I think those are the three options that you should be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get Freddie Freeman, Nick Markakis, maybe the two other lefties that can help kind of differentiate yourself. But I think Buchholz should throw a quality start. I don't expect a ton of offense from this Atlanta side, and Vegas doesn't either.
Right.
So, but really on the Red Sox side, you're looking at 1 through 6 are in play for me. Obviously, I know the first three bats are right-handed. You're looking at this Braves guy, and Chacin, he's the guy who's allowed where I'd have it here. I lost it. Keep it going.
Yulei Chacin.
Yeah, a 341 WOBA to lefties.
It's a great name.
Since 2014, so lefties have hit him well. Ortiz and Shaw are kind of the only guys that stand out for me, taking advantage of those splits. But really 1 through C, Bogarts, Pedroia, and Mookie Betts are going to be solid options.
Yeah, again, Boston minus 208 favorites, projected for 5.1 runs. So, I mean, you're looking at a pretty heavy favorite here. So, that's definitely a lineup to take a look at.
Yeah, definitely. In Fenway, definitely a better park in comparison to where they're at in Turner Field. But overall, this offense has been starting to thrive, and they've actually been hitting right-handers pretty well to start the year. So really, you're definitely looking at them. And once again, if you kind of wanted to be different, Jackie Bradley Jr. is a guy who's dirt cheap. Doesn't need to do much, but if he's a guy who can go yard, or as we saw the other night, him go for an RBI triple, that pays off his price tag immensely in one at bat.
Right. Yeah. Once you get below 3,500, it's pretty easy for them to. You only need 1 or 2 things to go your way to sort of pay off that value.
Yeah, definitely. And he should get that extra at bat in there as well with Boston hitting a route.
Mm-hmm.
So, next game we got here, we're looking at the Cardinals and Diamondbacks. Michael Wacha, Ruby De La Rosa, big over-under of 9. Vegas is expecting runs on both sides. I'm looking more so on the Cardinals side. And if you've been around, Ruby De La Rosa really struggles with left-handed bats since 2014, allowing a 389 WOBA and a 1.52 home runs per 9. Chase Field, really helpful for left-handed bats, especially in the power range. And they have some guys that really catch my eye. And we were kind of looking at this as being a pretty decent stack option.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, the lefties are guys to target, but I think like the first 4 or 5 guys are in play here.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Piscotty and Grichuk don't have that left-handed advantage, but still solid bats. Carpenter, if Matt Adams finds his way into the lineup, but I think Brandon Moss is going to be the key guy at first base, who should pop up and find himself in a decent spot. Is going to be very playable for me, and I think is going to be a little bit of a GPP sort of because I think Ortiz and guys like Chris Davis should be a little bit higher owned, but he's a safe play in all formats.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyone else you're looking at from that card side?
No. Again, I think the first 4 to 5 are in play, but for this Diamondback side, they're all pretty cheap, and I think other than Goldschmidt, I think you could get away with a pretty cheap stack here, especially with the first 2 guys.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Segura, just 3,800 on DraftKings, and Jake Lamb, 3,300. And, even with those cheap guys, Goldschmidt can fit right in just because you're still saving on the other 3.
Mm-hmm.
Walker, not a big splits guy, has been decent against left-handers, 268 WOBA allowed. But Chase Field still, pitchers have come in and struggled. So I think you could see that happen. And, Vegas is still expecting plenty of runs on that Diamondback side.
Yeah, I think they're more for tournaments. in terms of how you want to build rosters. I think Cardinals have some more cash game-ish type of options, but yeah, definitely worth taking a look at them. And if you're going for a tournament or making multiple lineups in this small slate, I think there's some intriguing stack options there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one thing I like about DraftKings is Manny Machado is shortstop eligible, so you can plug in Matt Carpenter and
Mm,
put Machado at shortstop, and I mean that's a nice little duo right there.
definitely.
So, next game here, not a favorable spot for
Mm-mm.
offenses. You got Kenta Maeda on the hill there, who's going to be one of my cash game arms, one of my GPP arms. I think there's no other way. I just can't see any other way of using just him not 100% across the board tonight.
Right. I think in terms of process, you pretty much have to fade this Marlins offense tomorrow or tonight and sort of look at Maeda as your cash game pitcher. But I mean, crazier things have happened. Clayton Kershaw can sort of not do what he's supposed to do. So if that's possible, then Maeda is too. But I think in terms of general process, you're kind of looking at this saying, all right, if things go the way they should, he's the cash game pitcher.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, he's won 6 innings in each start. He's only allowed one earned run. He threw 6.1 innings of shutout ball in Coors with 8 strikeouts. I mean, this guy, he's been very solid to start the year in this Miami offense. They can't get to pitchers as we saw, but overall, I think this is one where Maeda comes away throwing pretty well, and I don't think a win is necessarily in his favor. Um, as far as just in comparison to other guys on the board,
Mhm.
because they are only just minus 122 favorites there.
Right. Yeah, it is a toss up. I mean, he's going up against a pretty good pitcher there in Jose Fernandez. So I guess that kind of makes sense with that line.
Yeah, definitely. And Fernandez, interesting GPP option. It also kind of puts the Dodgers in an interesting GPP situation
Hmm.
because since Fernandez has come back from the Tommy John, allowing a 331 WOBA to lefties, 32% hard ball rate. It's not exactly like he's been completely shutting him down. And with this Dodger lineup that's heavily left-handed, once again with that dynamic DK pricing, they're super cheap. They're always usually super cheap, but more so tonight. Interesting stack option. Interesting one-offs to be different. Guys like Puig and Turner don't really excite me being right-handed, but guys like Utley, Seager, and Gonzalez do a little bit.
Yeah, and again, if they were priced a little higher, I wouldn't be in on them, but the price definitely intrigues me, at least on DraftKings.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And Fernandez coming off kind of a tough routing against San Francisco, who has some lefties. He struggled a little bit against teams with heavily left-handed bats, so I think he could run into a little bit of trouble there, but it's not something I'm banking on happening.
Yeah.
So overall, I think you need to stick with that Camden Yards game, also the Red Sox, and then looking at the Cardinals is kind of your safer options tonight.
Right. And then Diamondbacks and sort of Dodgers for tournament GPP stacks.
Yep, no, I definitely agree. So that's going to wrap it up with the slate breakdown. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all the great tools and content.